Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rashmi.
So we'll give folks a couple of minutes to join, like a minute or so, and we'll get started. All right, so I know it's sharp 10, as and when people join, I'll admit them. But thank you for joining. Let me turn on the video here. So my name is Rashmi, and from an introduction standpoint, I've been a BA for the past 14, coming up 15 years. I love the job. It's very interesting in terms of the different projects that you can be working on, as well as the people that you meet. A lot of benefits of being a BA. The purpose of this training session is basically to go over, step by step. How do you become a BA? What do you need? There's a lot of information out there that I think can get very overwhelming for people. What I'm trying to do is really break it down into chunks, step by step, baby steps, so that you guys can take that and kind of use that as your foundation. That being said, what I would like for you guys to do, there is a chat over there. If you could just type in, like, what are you hoping to get out of this whole training session? That would be great. So why don't we take about 1 to 2 minutes, and each of you can just give me maybe a one sentence thing saying, this is why I want to do this. I'm either a newbie, I just want to gain some additional knowledge. So if you guys could just put it in the chat, they're saying, what are you hoping to get out of these sessions? That'd be great. I'm going to pause here for about 1 to 2 minutes, and you guys can type away. All right, so we have a mix of folks that want to understand that are new or that are switching gears. So I think this will be a good foundation for you guys to really understand the core competencies for becoming a business analyst. That being said, I will share my screen. And by the way, I'm recording this so that this will be available for you afterwards as well. And so you guys can access this information for later. I'm one of those people that I need time to digest the information. So it's good to kind of go back and kind of reference this as well. So in terms of, I share my screen. So a couple of housekeeping items. So we went through what are you hoping to get out of these training sessions? And we'll keep revisiting these expectations with you as we move along. I would highly recommend joining our Facebook group. And basically what we will be using that is for homework assignments. So, homework is optional. I hate to use the word homework, but it's more like practice, right? So if you could join the Facebook group, I will be using that and leveraging that to basically go over any open questions that you may have. Now, I am a full-time employee, so I will try my best to get back to you, but that being said, it can get a little bit tough getting back. The second thing is this is a collaborative session, but we only have an hour a week, so I would highly recommend let's just focus and get through things. I have templates made available. I did realize that I put it up on the Google Shared Drive, but I have uploaded them as independent templates on the website. So as we move along, if you do decide to do your homework assignments, you can kind of reference those templates as we move along on my website. And the website, I'll be sending out an email providing you the website and where this is located after this session. This does not guarantee a job, so I am doing it out of passion and out of actually growing a community. So for me, this doesn't guarantee a job for you, but it will give you the confidence to go out there and know what you're talking about and basically give you that level of understanding of what a BA does through basic practice. Before I move forward, I just want to open the floor to see if does anyone have any questions? You guys can unmute yourselves and ask any questions that before I move along.
Hi, Rashmi. This is Amarpreet. Thanks for doing this. Would you do me a favor and let me in from another Zoom meeting from laptop? I actually joined earlier through my phone, and I'm just trying to join through my laptop. So we really appreciate if you can let me in.
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Can you let me in? I'm waiting to be.
Sure, yes. Yeah,
thank
yep,
you.
hold on.
Thanks.
Not a problem. You should be able to join, Amanpreet. Are you in? Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions before we get moving? Okay. So overall, I posted this on my website as well, but the overall schedule, it's very comprehensive because really today we're going to go through how to really kick off a project, right? And what is a project and what does a BA do? So just kind of demystifying that first step. Then we'll be going through a bunch of activities, and the way I've organized the class, it's basically sequential. So these are kind of activities that you as a BA would do sequentially, and that's the way I'm thinking of it as well. It introduces you to, well, what is an activity diagram? What is a business process flow? Data dictionaries. How do you go out there and get requirements? Conducting things like JAD sessions. So I just don't want to overwhelm you if you're new to the space, but really getting you a good understanding of what terminologies BAs use and what you will hear and will be asked of you during the interview process. Also, one critical thing to keep in mind is what is Agile? What is SDLC? So things like that I will be covering later on during the course of these sessions as we move along, because those are things that from an industry standard you absolutely need to be aware of. All right, so Um, the next item here is before we get into kicking off a project. The way I'm approaching this is I've used a case study for us to basically leverage throughout the course of this training session. And I'll get to that case study shortly, but really I want to get into the life cycle of a project. And stop me if you have questions. When we talk about a project can be anything. It could be anything from if you personally need to, I don't know, set up a birthday party for your niece, nephew, for your child. That's a project in itself, right? Keeping with the same example, um, setting up a project for your, a birthday party for your child. Well, how do you kick off that birthday party? How do you kick it off, right? From a project manager perspective, it's a different way to kick things off. From a BA lens, there's different steps. So that's the intention of going through this. But from a life cycle of a project, keeping in mind the birthday party example, right? You would initiate the project, meaning you would say, all right, well, let me sit down with a pen and paper and write down, well, what do I need, right? Who do I need to contact? Who do I need to meet with? Those are the steps. That's your first step, is initiate. You plan the project, you execute the project, and you control, meaning you manage the ongoing project, and then you close it out, right? So those are the steps of and the life cycle of a project. An example that I would give here is is making a sandwich, right? How do you make a sandwich? Well, that's a kind of a project in itself. You really sit down, you initiate, right? You understand the who, the what, the where, the when. You're focused. You're writing these notes down. You plan the lunch, and in this case, you already decided to make a sandwich or sandwiches for the lunch, but you're planning the lunch. Well, what's going to be on the menu? Are you going to have sides, stuff like that? So that's the planning. You do the work. You actually get up and you make the sandwich or the sandwiches, right? And that's part of the execution. You track the progress right here, meaning you control, meaning you're managing the effort, right? And you eat the meal and you're happy, right? So I'm just trying to break it down in a real life examples as to what that life cycle of a project looks like. As a business analyst, right? What does it mean for you in that whole project life cycle, in that whole planning process? Well, let's see what it means. Number one, a BA, a business analyst, will be part of the initiation, right? And how are they involved? They help a project manager to understand the who, the what, the where, the when. And it really helps a project manager because project management, in my mind, is a completely different skill set than a business analyst skill set. A business analyst would complement a project manager. So, and this is where they help during the initiation of a project. The second thing, um, they also help in researching what was eaten, in this case, what was eaten in the past, right? So you're making a meal and you want to research what was done in the past. And this kind of translates, and I'll get into it later, things like document analysis, right? So that's your research phase. You then determine the needs, right? Why does a BA get involved in the first place? Because you're the ones that basically translate and identify the change and translate what the needs are from that change. So you determine the needs of, in this case, the lunch, right? So you help the project manager to say, all right, well, what do we need for this lunch? Well, let me come up with a couple of ideas. Let me work with, I don't know, guests to determine what would they like. You as a BA would identify the ingredients. You would say, do I want cheese? I don't know, meat? So you'd identify the ingredients with the help of your guests, and guests equal stakeholders, and you'll hear the word stakeholders a lot. You build the process. You help build the ultimate process. All right, when the guests come in, they're going to hang their coats up, then they'll go into the dining room. So you're the kind of the architect and you taste test before you give it to the guests, meaning you kind of validate and make sure that the sandwiches are done right, they taste right, and then you work with, I don't know, there could be other taste testers, and you help kind of make sure that it meets the needs of your guests, in this case, stakeholders. I will pause here, and I just want to see if anyone has any questions. So simple 3 steps. When you get a project, and I'll introduce you to the case study shortly. There's 3 very basic simple steps. Number 1, discovery of the effort. That's step 1. Step 2 is you understand, or you need to understand the stakeholders. In this case, as an example, with earlier on, you were part of the planning, right? And you were working with the guests, and your guests are kind of like the stakeholders. So understand the stakeholders, and we'll go through what that means. And number 3 is you build a requirements management plan. So really, it's in some instances, you don't even need to show it to your project team, but it's more for you and to guide you through, well, these are the steps I need to take in order to gather the requirements. So let's get on to real life example. All right, so I know there's a person called Bob who owns a brick and mortar vegan store. In 2020, COVID impacted his business. He quickly realized that he needs to move his business online. Bob consults with his operation manager, Steve, his financial manager, Eric, and his staff about the goals and objectives for the next few months. They want to stop the bleeding, that is, a loss of customers that would typically walk through the doors. They want the ability to allow a customer to select from the menu, place their order, and pay for the order online. They will have the ability to either select delivery using DoorDash, or they will have the ability to select pickup of the order from the restaurant. For those of you, so I'm based in the US, for those that are not familiar with DoorDash, it's basically a food delivery, it's like a service. The focus is just on delivering, kind of like the Uber of food delivery. They hired Dave, who is a project manager and has an offshore team of developers and testers. You are one of the offshore team members and have been approached to gather the requirements as a business analyst for this project. They want this developed and tested in 3 months. So I'm going to pause here and ask a question. In what and who, as a BA, what would you think your first steps would be before actually getting into the actual step by step? Just what's your gut feeling? What should your first steps be?
Gathering the requirements.
Okay, that's one. What else?
Understanding what they want.
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Understanding the project, what is to be done at the end.
Gotcha. Yep. Anything else?
And the understanding, like, what's the budget of doing the whole process.
So you're saying budget of
Yeah,
the
of
work
the whole
effort.
project. Yeah.
Let's get through that. Yep, good. All right. So let's start with these 3, right? So yes, you would gather requirements, but not yet. Yes, you will understand the project. In this case, what I think you're saying is project needs. Absolutely. That's kind of your first step. And as far as the budget of the work effort, keep in mind, we can go through that later, but that's a task of the project manager, unless you're playing 2 roles of a project manager and a BA, which gets a little confusing. But this effort, assume that you're just a sole BA, the Dave, who is a project manager, he'll work on the budget. So
Okay.
just want to make sure that we differentiate. But thank you for speaking up because this really helps. And this will help you understand what does a BA do. So step one. So this gets to understanding the project needs, right? So discovery. And I call it discovery because it's just for you to get familiar with what's going on. So it's really understanding the business need. And what I typically use is context diagrams. And that's a tool that I don't think a lot of people use, but it helps me break down the information because keep in mind, there's so much information that's going to be thrown at you at the beginning that you won't know where to begin. And I think part of it is when I became a VA, I was like, I used to freeze. But this will really help you break down the information, and that's critical. So what I have done is, and let me stop sharing and pull up the template, is throughout this course, I'm just going to break it down by using templates because that really would help you understand how to break down the information. So let me share the screen. Okay. So okay. So this is on my website as well. I'll send you the links afterwards, but really I put the same exact case study in here. Remember, just to summarize high level in your head, it's current state is brick and mortar, wants to move online for delivery of his services, and that's the basic crux of it. Now, so the way I've broken it down and the way you should probably think about breaking this information down is understand the why, understand the what, understand the when, and understand the where. And that will help you break down and understand the business need. Because as a VA, you're there, and this is the exciting part of the job, is you're there to understand things that are not being said, identify really the loopholes in what's given to you, and really question things. Think analytically. That's the key. You at some point will be so good at this as a PA that you won't even need to break it down this way because it'll be like second nature. So understand the why. The case study outlines the why clearly. Due to COVID, there is a business need to move the store online. Otherwise, he will lose his customer base. And actually, let's do this as a group, right? So what is he trying to do? So over here, it's kind of partially you're gathering requirements, but it's more like you're trying to understand the requirements. So there's a difference between gathering requirements versus understanding. You're understanding based on what's already given to you. Okay. So can someone tell me, well, what is he trying to do? What are the requirements? Can you see any requirements in this write-up?
He's trying to increase his profit as well as satisfy the customers.
Yeah, good job. Anything else? And I'll tell you a trick about how to identify requirements in a little bit, but I just want to see gut feeling. What do you think are the requirements? What does this customer want? What does this kind of customer / stakeholder want?
Okay,
Go ahead.
so may I speak, Rashmi?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so over here, the customer wants a online service, or we can say an app, okay, from where where from where people can order food. Also, they should have the options to pick it up from their restaurant, or they can use the DoorDash service. Okay, and also they should be able to do the payment online. I think according to me, these are the requirements. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's correct. And the key is really, sometimes it won't be straightforward what's given to you, and sometimes you got to extract that information, but this is a start. And the trick is, when you see words like they want, right? That's kind of, this is what they want. That's a requirement. They want the ability, right? So those are the requirements. And when we say requirements is, well, what should the system, what would the system, or what is expected out of the system? The key is, and you'll get used to it as you move along when you sit through meetings, you'll say, okay, requirement. Okay, they're using the word want. The customer, the stakeholder may say, I want XYZ. Oh, boom, that's a requirement. And you put that aside and you write that down. So good job. Understand the when. When do they want this by?
3 months.
Correct. So they want it developed and tested in 3 months.
Right.
So, and then where, right? So where is, they want this moved from brick and mortar to an online store. Now, step 5 I have here is build the problem statement. It's in the template. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is helpful for, and there's a sequence of a sentence you can use to break down a problem statement. But I think it's clearly identified that they're losing customers. That's a problem. And that's basically the problem statement. And in some cases, you may get a bigger effort and very complex effort where even your customers may not know what the problem is. And you can kind of step in and break down the problem into, an easy kind of a problem statement and get to root cause. So I don't want to go there yet. And ping me afterwards if you have questions on this, but I'd really like to keep it to the core on how to break down the information. All right, next, don't get scared with context diagrams because it's really a circle with boxes. Think of it that way. So I'm just dummy 101, context diagram is really a circle in the middle, which talks about the system that needs to be built. And there's boxes on the side without arrows going back and forth. And I just put this in Word, right? It's very simple. But what this does do is very powerful. It helps me understand what is the entities. When I say entities, I'm going to translate that for you guys. Entity is something that is impacting the system. It could be in the form of an input. It could be in the form of an output. It could be in the form of a customer. So in this case, your system, even though he says he wants to go online, it's really he wants an online ordering system, right? And your entities are basically things like payment processing, right? So that needs to be, that's one of the features, I'm saying features / entities that will be part of this online ordering system. You will also have delivery, right? So it's like the delivery part of this. So that's one of the entities. Customers ordering their meals is an entity. So that's, customer is a user. Sometimes I've seen it where they'll say, okay, they'll break down the customers. It could be broken down by demographics, like older customers versus younger customers, or customers within this geographic location. So you can break this down even further. What I also do at this point is really understand the scope. Scope is very critical. As a BA, off an effort, you're kind of the scope cop, right? You control the scope, you understand what the scope is, and that's critical. So what I normally do is I would go back to my broken down, what you call the information, and I really start writing down, just doing a brain dump. What's in scope is really providing a menu to the customer as part of this online system. list of menu items in scope. So I would kind of first glance, without even meeting the stakeholder or my customer, say, all right, this could be the menu items. Ability for the customer to place the order, ability for the customer to pay for the order, ability for the customer to select either delivery or pickup. Okay. At this point, you will probably find loopholes and things that need to be answered, right? So things like, I put one here, is there an existing website that needs to be added to? And then there'll be a list of gaps and questions that you would put down here. So this really helps me kick it off and really understands, well, what are the missing pieces? What do I need to find out when I meet with my stakeholders? So I'm going to pause here. This is not rocket science. You guys can do it. Anyone can do it, and it's fun. That's basically what I kind of want to drive with this training sessions. So pause here, questions.
So over here, I just want to know, Rashmi, they have mentioned that cause of COVID, they are facing issues. So there won't be any website, right? So over here, you have written like in the scope,
Oh,
existing website. Yeah. So we do like, is it necessary to take care of this? Because it has been mentioned, right?
so true, and good point. What, so sometimes what's said and what someone tells you, I don't always 100% trust. I like to second confirm it again. So yes, they've said it's a brick and mortar vegan restaurant, but do they have like a landing page, like a one page, or do they already have a setup? Um, I think don't take someone's word, even what's written 100%. Always kind of question in the back of your mind and get that answered and document. That becomes critical. That's why I put this here.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else? All right. I did put a project charter here. I don't want to get too much into detail, but really a project charter. Remember when we had said going back here is when you as a BA help the project manager understand the who, what, where, when. A project manager might tap into you to really build a project charter, which is kind of like a charter, right? How do you explain that? It's something that contains the overall project scope, not the scope in weeds or in the detail, but more like high level scope, as well as stakeholders, the objectives. So I do have a template up there. I don't want to go too much into detail, but it's more like your leverage to build the project charter. Um, the next thing here is understanding stakeholders. And I emphasize the importance of this because this will help you drive a lot of, like, who do you go to get the requirements? How do you prioritize those requirements? That'll come up later. So who is a stakeholder? So anyone that is impacted by the project is a stakeholder. And I'm going to reference the BABOK here, and this is for me referencing it. For those that are not familiar, there's an overall organization called IIBA. They have what they call the BA Book of Knowledge, and it's a version 3 currently is what they're using. So it's basically a book for BAs to reference. It's a good reference, later on, but for now, they, just focus on the training session, and then if you want to do further reading, go to BABOK. For me, it's a good read. I use it quite a bit. But in the BABOK, they do define who the stakeholders are. It could be your customer, it could be operations, and really it's understanding the difference. But for now, keep this very basic, very simple. Your stakeholders, and let me get to that spreadsheet here, is I have a stakeholder template. Your stakeholders are Bob, right? So I have broken it down by who's stakeholder name, title, role, power, interest. So let's focus on that a little bit. What are his needs? Like in this case, what are his requirements? What are his concerns? And do you have any notes? And there's things like RACI. So without getting too much further, your first stakeholder that you've identified is Bob, as an example. The title is he's a CEO, the role, he's the owner. Now, I have here is power and interest. And when I say power, I'm saying more influence. How much of an influence does this person have in requirements? What is this person's interest in the requirements? They're very critical pieces. Okay, so let's focus on that. Bob is the owner. He has a high level of influence and he has a high level of interest because he owns the business, right? So he would be one of your critical stakeholders to make sure you get requirements from. Maybe here, this is going to help you break down, well, these are requirements from him, and you put it down here. In this case, he would like an online ordering system. That's all he cares about. He wants the outcomes of increasing his sales. That's all he cares about. Okay, so then let's do this collaboratively. So we'll go to the next one. He's concerned about timelines because as an owner, I would be concerned with making sure that I get this up and going fast. Okay, notes, I don't have anything here. Racy, let's spend a little bit of time here. Has anyone heard of Racy in this group? Okay, I'm just gonna go basic. Racy, the R stands for responsible. The A stands for accountable. The C stands for consulted. And the I stands for informed. This will help you in the long run because it really helps you understand, well, is this person accountable? Yes. When I say accountable, think about the president or prime minister of a country. The buck stops with that person, right? So that's the person that's ultimately accountable. Responsible, right? So let's stop here, and then I can go through an example. Give me another stakeholder example in this example here. Who's another stakeholder?
Finance manager, Eric.
Perfect. Let's follow Eric here. And let's make sure. So Eric is the finance manager. So let's fill this out. So at this point, you're kind of picking the project manager's brain. You're kind of doing some research on your own. You may have met with your with the owner or with the finance manager just initially, just to get a feel. At this point, you're saying, influence-wise, it's high because he basically owns the wallet. Interest, I found out it's low. I'm just making this up for now. And so for him, let's see, we haven't really spelled out what his needs are, right? But that's good, right? Because you need to follow up on this. So I'm going to put a TBD, and I'm just going to put this in red because this will give me a signal, oh, I need to follow up with him to understand, well, what does he want? In this case, if you meet with him initially and he says, well, I want reports generated. Okay, I'm just making this up. That will give me the sales numbers or the sales numbers. Okay. What is he concerned about? He's concerned about the money, right? So it's the sales and the profits. And that's something it's not in the write-up, but that's where you would need to do your little bit of research digging, the project manager. If he doesn't know the answer, then you would kind of say, hey, can I meet with the customer? And if you do meet with them, you ask them these questions. Put this in red because I know this is what I made up. I need to confirm and talk with my stakeholder. Now, in this case, he's not really responsible, right? He's not responsible because he's not responsible to deliver this effort. Is he accountable? No, because Bob is accountable. He's the buck stops here guy. Is he consulted? Yes, right? So you're going to consult him for the requirements. Is he informed? Well, yeah, he needs to be informed. And actually, yeah, you can have him as consulted and informed, both of them. Because during the course of the requirements gathering, you would say, well, you would consult with him and you would inform him of the requirements. And I have your approval. So this helps you understand, do you need approval on the requirements from this person? I would say yes. All right. So I've tried to keep it very basic for all of you, really break down the information and use the templates as your guide so that you can, at the end of this, you build like a sheet of a roster of stakeholders and you can look at it holistically and say, all right, I need to focus on Bob a lot more than Eric, or I need to focus on Bob and someone else. So I'm going to pause here. This gets into stakeholders, and I'm going to wrap this up, but do you have any questions before I move forward? Okay. So we went through discovery, number one. That was your first step. And within discovery, you broke down the information by who, what, where, when, why. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. Can you go back to the stakeholder register, please?
Sure. I think it might be my volume.
Oh, sorry.
Is it increases the volume?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
All right. So I wanted to understand two things. Why is Bob not checked for the accountability? Can you go a little bit on the right side? So you know how you have X for Eric to be consulted and informed. So why is Bob not consulted and informed?
Yeah, that's a good question. The rule of thumb for RACIs are basically you can only have one person accountable, and the person that's accountable will naturally be consulted and informed.
Okay.
You can only have one person accountable and not consulted and informed, that person is the go-to person. And I did have that question initially when I became a BA, but that's kind of the thought process behind it.
And why he's not responsible? Why is the X not on the responsible for the Bob? Because it's his business, right?
No, so responsible for, so I'm looking at it from the lens of requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I would put myself as a stakeholder in this register, and I would be responsible for the requirements delivery. So when we say responsible, I'm talking about delivery of the requirements.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So really, it's the lens that you're
here.
looking at it from. Yep.
Yeah. So when you fill in this RACI, this is something you're predicting. It's not something that is a need. It's just you're predicting it. So somebody's going to cross-check after this the stakeholder register later.
Yeah. So I would say this is. So you have your first, your information that's provided to you. So based off of that and your conversations with the PM, project manager, you would kind of fill this RACI out. That's your first gut feel. And when you meet with your customers, and your stakeholders, you may identify that, this person is a lot more influential or powerful than I had originally thought. So as you move along, this is a fluid document, you would update this document. And because I've noticed also in working through many, many projects is your stakeholder register can never be stagnant. You constantly need to keep up to speed with it. So it is a fluid document. So I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Questions. So after that, we went through the list of stakeholders. We have the template up there. So now, step 3. This is not needed, but I like to do it because you're building out a plan, and having a plan is always great, right? So what I have here is another template, right? So the way I want to do this is make sure that you use templates and we really use that approach, because otherwise things can get all over the place. And as a BA, it becomes important because you're the single source of documentation. This helps you really keep track of, like, it's more like an audit trail as well as what happened. So simple requirements management plan, not sure why that's cut off, but it's really your tasks that you need to cover. And I put like a shell together, don't have all the specifics. You would include your subtasks, who needs to do it, any stakeholders involved, by when, and notes. And how this helps is it helps. So let me back up a little bit. It's weird because the project manager, as I said, is responsible for the budget that we spoke about, timelines, as well as in the delivery of this effort, right? So they want to make sure things are on track. As a VA, you're responsible for the product. There's a difference between product and project. Product is really, in this case, it's the website. It's the online ordering system. Project is the effort to deliver the product. Product lives longer than a project. Project ends, but the product lives. So that's why it becomes important to document. So even if you're off this project, people can use this documentation to build out or build up the product. The plan is for your purpose to understand, well, what are the activities and tasks? And this helps the project manager as well with the project milestones and delivery dates so that he or she can plan when should testing happen, when should development happen, things of that sort. Not needed, but I keep it for my reference simply because I have to have a baseline of where I am, where things have gone wrong, how can I check and adjust. So in this case, we went through discovery, right? So I put down discovery tasks, document analysis. In this case, you read through the materials that was provided to you, gathered the information, created the context diagram, identified document stakeholders, develop plan. The next one, which we will be covering next week, is define current state and understand future state. Now, you may have a different approach, a different way of doing things, but it's always nice to put a plan together and the dates. Not going to get too much into details here, but I'm going to pause here to see, does anyone have any questions? All right, so I do have some homework. As I said, I don't like the word homework, but if you want to go the extra mile, I give a very simple example. I do have a case study for an online catering system. It's a little more complicated than this one. So if you are interested in really doing that assignment, I would recommend downloading the templates from the website and really going through it step by step and making sure that you understand, the different steps that we went through. Let me see if I have it here. Let me stop sharing. While I'm looking this up, I know a couple of people joined a little bit late. Just want to reiterate that I'm recording this so that you guys can have access to this recording later. As I said, I don't necessarily learn the first time. That's my learning style. So if you guys need that, I will post it on my website. And as I said, I highly recommend joining the Facebook group um, just so that you can you guys can share any questions or solve any problems on that site. So I have all this on my website under training. There's a session 1, and you'll see a couple of references here. A couple of things, IIBA, BA Times is a good website to go to, Modern Analyst. So just kind of reading through, getting familiar with vocabulary will help you Medium. There's I write for that platform as well, so it's under analyst column, so you could reference that as well. A couple of books here is Babok. As I said, don't use that immediately if you're new. It can get a little overwhelming, but just stick with, there's one book here, Jumpstart Your Business Analysis Career. It's on Amazon, but I think I forget the author's name, but he's very good at breaking down information. Reference my article, but really the catering order, the ordering system here, it's the current state. So I don't want you to go in and solve everything unless you really want to, but it's a little more complex. And if you could by next week really identify like the stakeholders, problem statement if you can, but really what I want you to do is identify the need and then use the templates that I went through to really understand the basics. And then as we move along, you can kind of work through the future state, the activity diagrams and things like that. So just don't get overwhelmed to begin with, just go slow. So I know we have about 10 minutes left. And what I would like us to do is I see a bunch of people on, and you don't need to be shy because I think we're going to spend a lot of time. I'd like to hear from you. Like, I know you guys, and I'm going to stop sharing for now.